Well, hello everyone, how are you doing this fine day? Hope you're enjoying your week. Welcome to another survival challenge, in particular, a Helldivers survival challenge. I know, I've been throwing so much Invincible at you that I'm like, you know what? Let me give you something fresh, something new, something you ain't never seen before, right? So the premise of this video is simple. We're gonna go around all sorts of fictional universes and take a bunch of different crazy alien creatures and chuck them on into the Helldivers universe and see how they're going to react once they go there and how the Helldivers are going to react to them. Spoiler alert, the Helldivers are probably going to want to kill them. It's just kind of a Helldivery thing to do. If you've never seen any of these videos before and you don't know anything about the Helldivers, you're going to have to go back and watch one of my previous videos where I actually talk about the Helldivers, all the crazy shit you need to know about Super Earth. That's going to be in a link in the corner somewhere up here. Down in the pinned comment below, you will find a link to the Discord where we have all sorts of things from debate streams, art competitions, D&D sessions, and all sorts of other crazy fun activities that you may enjoy. And if you happen to enjoy this video, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember, if you join the membership, you get videos early. But I'm wasting up your time. Let's get started. First up on the chopping block, we have the Klyntar from Marvel Comics. That is the actual name of the race of symbiotes like Venom and Carnage. And I know at first glance it seems kind of strange that I have this alien race first, as if it's like the weakest alien race, because it's definitely not the weakest alien race. The symbiotes are actually very, very powerful and numerous for that matter. And honestly, when compared to the Helldivers, they're stronger, faster. Most of the Helldivers' weapons won't work on them. The strongest of the Klyntar actually have the ability to not be symbiotes, but actually become more of parasites, where they could take over the bodies of Helldivers and other Super Earth citizens and just control them by force, and there's nothing they can do about it. There's also evidence in Marvel Comics of a bunch of Klyntar all coming together to make larger, more powerful Klyntar. I mean, the entirety of the Klyntar homeworld isn't even a planet. It's just tons and tons and tons of Klyntar all mashed together to make one giant planet, which also supports the fact that they are insanely numerous. Like, how many Klyntar would you need to smash together to make a mass the size of a planet? If you took all of the human beings on Earth and smashed them together, you wouldn't even make like a moon. It would be super, super, super small. How many trillions upon quadrillions upon octillions would you need in Klyntar to make a, especially considering that the average Klyntar is actually a lot smaller and has less mass than a human. It's like liquid and shit. This is actually really impressive. So having said all that, why do I have the Klyntar so low on this list? And it's because the weaknesses of the Klyntar are so devastating to their ability to win, it's basically non-existent. The Klyntar are very powerful and damn near indestructible, with the exception of having two weaknesses, one being heat and the other being sound. Now, normally this wouldn't be that big of a deal. There's a lot of really powerful alien races that have a weakness that's fire, like the Thing. Like, it doesn't automatically mean that you can beat it. But with the Klyntar, I would argue that their weaknesses are so extreme to these two things that it basically makes them worthless against Super Earth. There is actually a comic book that exists where Spider-Man defeats Venom by lighting a single match, and that match gives off enough heat to make Venom completely useless and fall to the ground in fear and terror because he can't go any closer to Spider-Man while he's holding a fucking single match. Now you might say, well, that's not really fair to use that as an example because that's like an extreme point, and most of the time he's shown to not have that extreme of a fire weakness. And that's not entirely true. If you go back far enough to when Venom was significantly weaker than he is today, that was a consistent weakness he had, just a very, very small amount of fire. Today, that's not the case. Today, you actually would need more fire to overcome his fire weakness. But having said that, this isn't a fight against Venom or Carnage. This is a fight against the entire Klyntar race. And as of the modern Venom and Carnage you're talking about, that doesn't have quite as exaggerated of a weakness to fire like the old one does, they're two of the strongest Klyntars that exist. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that they're the strongest Klyntar. There are definitely Klyntar that are stronger than they are, but they are in the upper tiers of strength in terms of the species as a whole. The vast majority of Klyntar still have that same weakness to fire that Venom and Carnage had all the way back in the 80s and 90s when those characters came out. It is an unbelievably extreme weakness to these things. And considering that Super Earth utilizes fire a lot in their weapons, from massive flamethrowers to orbital napalm strikes, they will win very easily in almost any battle against the Klyntar. It wouldn't even really be fair. There are certain symbiotes that are so old and powerful that the fire weakness isn't really a fire weakness anymore. Like, you have to use electricity to harm them because electricity electricity is hotter than fire. But even saying that, Super Earth does have electric-based weapons. They have the arc thrower, they have the giant Tesla towers. It doesn't really matter what kryptonite the Klyntar have. Super Earth has weapons that can utilize that kryptonite against them. There's really no way out of this for them. So I was trying to think of different ways that the Klyntar can actually survive against Super Earth, because anytime you're talking about Super Earth, diplomacy is always off the table. Like, if they want something from you, they will go to war and take it from you. You can't negotiate with them. And the fact that the thing that Super Earth wants is complete control over basically everything, all territory across the entire universe, means the Klyntar is just in their way of doing that. So I literally don't think that there's anything that Klyntar can do in order to avoid war here. And as I said before, if they just get into open warfare, they're going to immediately die because the Helldivers' weapons are kind of specifically designed to kill them. The only options that I can see the Klyntar having is the fact that they don't have to fight like the Helldivers do. They don't require oxygen or food or really anything that a regular human of Super Earth would need, so they don't have to fight on planets. They could fight in space if they wanted to. They don't even really need spaceships. They can literally jump out of their spaceship, float to Super Earth ships, and then just start fucking them up. And since there's no sound or oxygen in space, this would remove the two biggest weaknesses, or at least significantly lessen the two biggest weaknesses that the Klyntar have that Super Earth can utilize against them. This wouldn't be 100% effective. Like, they wouldn't be able to use sound against them or fire, but they still have laser weapons that don't need oxygen to be fired, and they're still superheated laser weapons. So it would make them less effective, but not completely ineffective. And I really only think that this would work for a bit until Super Earth adapts to it and starts fighting in new ways. Probably given all of their ships different defenses on it that could like shoot lasers and different heated weapons. Maybe even like make the entire outer of their ships like heat up so that Klyntar can't jump on top of them to fuck up their ships. We already know they have technology like that, and given how fast we've been able to see Super Earth adapt to things and create new technologies in the past, it would only take like a couple weeks for them to be able to do this and modify all their ships to fight in this new way. Now, there is the possibility that Super Earth wouldn't want to wipe out all the symbiotes because they would want to utilize them for their own military. They might want to capture a lot of symbiotes and then sort of multiply them, or allow them to multiply so they can then give them to their Helldivers, so now they have superpowered symbiote Helldivers. But I almost feel like that would make their army weaker, because 2 out of the 3 factions that Super Earth fights against uses heated weapons. Both the Illuminate and the Automatons both have superheated weapons, and the Helldivers currently have decent defenses against that heat. If you start making them all symbiotes, you just kind of shot yourself in the foot, because now you gave them a massive weakness they didn't have before. So it would really only be useful against the Terminids. Actually, I could also see the symbiotes, in an attempt to survive, start combining with the other factions like the Illuminates and the Terminids and stuff to make them more powerful to help them fight against Super Earth. But again, I think you're creating a new issue that those armies didn't have, where they're not that weak to fire, and now when you put a symbiote on them, all of a sudden like fire is super destructive. So again, while you're making those armies physically stronger and faster and almost indestructible outside of fire, you're making them so unbelievably weak to fire that it wouldn't actually make the army more effective. Now, Super Earth is really good at genetic modification. They've been able to genetically modify their own citizens, as well as the Terminids, which is why their adaptation ability is so good. Possibly, if they can get their hands on some of the Klyntar and then genetically modify them to remove their heat and sound-based weaknesses and then utilize them as a weapon, that might be something that's possible. But if that was possible, you would think that Null, a literal god in all the crazy scientific advancements that the Klyntar have, would have been able to genetically modify that weakness out of their system, but they haven't done that yet. So maybe they just didn't want to? I don't know, but that could be possible. And because the Klyntar actually get the personalities and belief systems of the people that they attach themselves to, they could actually get a relatively young Klyntar, then genetically modify those weaknesses out of them, then wear it, and then those Klyntar would automatically become super loyal to Super Earth, and they would have no reason to kill them. And these superior genetically modified versions of Klyntar would just become like regular citizens within the Super Earth hierarchy that would assist Super Earth against the other Klyntar and all of Super Earth's other enemies, which I could definitely see something like that happening. Really, what I actually see happening here is Super Earth finding the Klyntar homeworld and then like firebombing it into non-existence, because again, the entire Klyntar homeworld is made of Klyntar symbiotes, so the whole planet should be really easily destroyed with enough fire, and Super Earth has more than enough fire to just fucking destroy the entire planet. The problem is that when they do that, they're going to release Null, god of the symbiotes, and they can't do anything against him. He will wipe out literally all of Super Earth with ease. So I guess in that way you can kind of say the symbiotes win, but I don't think that that counts as a win for the symbiotes, because one, you have to wipe them all out to release Null in the first place, or at least the vast majority of them to release Null in the first place. But also, Null is not an ally to the symbiotes. They locked him in the planet for a reason. They're enemies. So I don't think an enemy of the symbiotes being released and murdering all of the symbiotes and Super Earth counts as a victory for the symbiotes. It would just kind of wipe them both out. What's most likely to happen is Super Earth basically driving all of the Klyntar to extinction until getting to the homeworld, wiping out the rest of them, and then Null coming out and finishing Super Earth after he releases. But that's a war that's going to take place after the Klyntar have already been defeated. So can the Klyntar win? No, I really don't see it happening. Again, they're physically stronger, they're faster, they could take way more damage normally speaking, but their weakness to fire and sound is so exaggerated. I just don't see them being able to overcome that. You have some here and there that do have a higher resistance to these things, but even them can be completely wiped out with just like basic bitch fire. And if you want to count like the most powerful symbiotes, we're talking about like Carnage once he has the Darkhold, who is completely immune to fire. I'm not giving him the Darkhold here. That's not a weapon that he has it in one storyline, Absolute Carnage, and he never has it again. The Darkhold isn't even a weapon that is owned by the Klyntar. I don't see why it should be a part of their arsenal. And without a weapon like that and that massive power up that characters like Carnage and Venom also gets a massive power up similar to that make them immune to fire, their weakness to fire is kind of just as bad as everybody else's, and it's not gonna be good for them. They're gonna lose. Next up, we have the Imperium from the DC animated universe. That's right, just the DC animated universe. This alien species doesn't actually exist in DC Comics at all. They're kind of like the DCAU's version of the White Martians. The DCAU just kind of got rid of White Martians and were like, let's just use these guys and we'll base them off the White Martians and then base them off a little bit of War of the Worlds and a couple of other alien species and just sort of make them their whole own thing. And that's what they ended up doing. The lists on my video usually have like a couple of really, really cool picks, and then occasionally I'll throw in one like, kind of pick, you know? And this is that, kind of pick. I mean, most people probably don't even remember these guys unless you saw the show Justice League, the first 3 episodes of Justice League. When the Justice League formed, they formed because these motherfuckers came to Earth and tried taking shit over, and the entire Justice League together was required to stop them, and then after they stopped them, that was it. We never saw them again. They're literally in the first 3 episodes. So all of the information we have on the Imperium is just whatever we see of them in those first 3 episodes. Now, when you actually look at what the Imperium is capable of accomplishing within those 3 episodes, they seem super, super impressive. You know, like they were able to wipe out all of the green Martians from the DC universe. Like they defeated all of them and wiped them all out to the point that John Jones was or Martian Manhunter was the only one that was left in the entirety of existence. They were able to force the Justice League into coming together and forming because no individual hero was able to take them out on their own. They were even able to completely defeat the Justice League, and by the end of the 3rd episode, they had them all tied up and ready to be killed, and it's like, yeah, these are really impressive abilities. Until you actually watch the episodes and see how all of that stuff unfolded, and you're like, you know what, actually these guys are really shitty. But before we get into all that, what exactly can the Imperium do? They are a space-faring race of alien conquerors that has the ability to absorb psychic energies, and when they do that, they can steal the powers that come from those psychic energies. So they have a lot of powers of the Green Martians in the DCAU because they invaded the Green Martians, stole a bunch of their psychic energies. So now they're like shapeshifters and they can read minds and stuff like that. But theoretically, they should be able to copy the powers of literally any type of psychic being that they come across. It just so happens that in the story that we see, the Green Martians are the only psychic beings they come across. So those are the only psychic powers they get, which is kind of odd when you think about it, because I wouldn't have thought that the shapeshifting abilities the Green Martians have is a psychic power. I would have thought that that's like a biological power that goes along with their psychic powers, but no, apparently it's a psychic power because the fucking Imperium absorb psychic energies, and because of that psychic energy absorption, they get the shapeshifting. So somehow that is a psychic-based power. I don't know. It's not like they have psychic absorption plus power mimicry, because they don't steal the powers of literally anybody else in the whole series. They just have the powers of the Green Martian. So it's clearly just psychic abilities. Whatever. Is what it is. And as I said before, they actually do have some very impressive sounding feats. sounding being the key word. They do wipe out all the Martians with the exception of Martian Manhunter. They do defeat the entire Justice League, including Superman and Wonder Woman and all of these people. And it's like, oh wow, okay, if they're that powerful, then obviously Super Earth doesn't stand a chance. But it's like, it's not all that, you know? Like, they take out the vast majority of the Justice League by tricking them into going in a room where they seep gas out of the walls and the gas knocks them all out. I would argue that many of these characters shouldn't have been knocked out by gas. Like, I wouldn't have expected Wonder Woman to be knocked out by gas. I wouldn't have expected Green Lantern, whose ring can actually, like, create oxygen for himself and shield him from things like this. He shouldn't have been knocked out. They kind of try to explain it away by saying he couldn't focus because the gas had already gotten in, so he couldn't, like, focus his ring to give himself oxygen. But I'm like, I don't know, that just seems pretty weak. Like, how fast was that fucking gas? The dude said it was a trap, then they saw the gas seeping out the walls, and there was several seconds that he had to, like, activate his little oxygen force field, and he just didn't do it. So I don't know, kind of feels like weak writing to me, but it is what it is. And then Superman was also defeated, but Superman was only defeated because the Imperium don't like sunlight, so they created these giant smog machines that block out the sun from Earth, and Superman had to go without sunlight for quite some time, which means he was greatly weakened, which allowed him to be taken prisoner. As we see in the third and final episode featuring the Imperium, once the sun gets in and shines on Superman, he gets all his powers back, and then he just fucking rocks all their shit like it's no big deal. So there's no question here the Imperium don't actually stand a chance because the Justice League, there was just like some very weird writing decisions in these 3 episodes to allow them to get away with this shit. So having said all this, can the Imperium actually survive Super Earth? No, come on, seriously? No. It's actually a plot point in the episode that one of the Imperium members has to pose as a politician to talk to the UN and get them to all give up their nuclear weapons and lessen their planetary defense capabilities for the good of peace, just so Earth would be completely defenseless when the Imperium shows up. What exactly would be the reason for them to do this other than the fact that regular Earth weapons would have been able to fight them off? Like, if the Imperium were so advanced and so amazing that nukes and anti-aircraft weaponry couldn't fight them off, like, why would they have to go through the process of trying to get Earth to eliminate them before they arrived? They're a very, very weak species. As far as them actually showing up, the only weapons that they're shown to have are like some laser guns, and even Batman is capable of going in and beating the shit out of quite a few of them. There's nothing here shown that regular modern day Earth guns aren't capable of firing and killing them. And as I said before, because the alien species was able to convince Superman to convince the rest of the world to basically give up all of their weapons of mass destruction, that means that when the ships arrive and started fucking up all their shit, we don't actually see those ships ever having to survive the weapons that Earth has. So their ships don't have any real feats of durability. Every hit that we see the ships take, it fucking hurts them, because the only hits that they take are from Superman and Hawkgirl and all these characters. Earth doesn't really fight back. It can't. It gave up all of its combat abilities, which I gotta say, that is a really, really stupid plot point in this first 3 episodes. I know a lot of people say that like the DCAU is amazing, it's so godly and all that stuff, and it's really, really solid, no doubt about that, but people forget there was some weak writing in these episodes. I know this was just the first 3 episodes, and it gets better as it goes along, but goddamn, this really, one politician, Superman, was able to convince every single country on Earth to just give up all their weapons and rely on one dude for the entire planet's defense. I don't, come on, that's stupid. So the Imperium would be dead 10 times over, even if they didn't have the insanely terrible weakness that they have, which is the fact that if they are hit with UV rays, they melt in fucking seconds. This isn't even like a vampire level weakness. This is like literally seconds. If the sun hits them, they're dead. They don't have enough time to even run into the shade. Like, it is fucking immediate. How they usually counteract this is they have these smog machines that they bring down to planets that cover the entire planet in a dark cloud that protects them from the UV radiation. This allows them to take over and kill a bunch of people without that really being a problem. However, as I've already said before, Earth was already convinced to give up its weapons before the aliens arrived there, which means when they built these giant smog factories, Earth didn't have any weapons capable of destroying them. If they do this to well, for one, they're never going to be able to convince Super Earth to give up all its weapons. Are you fucking high? And because of that, when they show up on Earth and they have all these smog machines, Super Earth is going to fucking blow them up. I don't think they have to. It's not really necessary, because Super Earth can literally just kill them with any weapons they have. Like, I legitimately think that Super Earth, in a on-ground forces against forces fight, Super Earth has more impressive weapons and just overall a better and more varied arsenal. But they don't even really have to fight. The aliens are going to show up, they're going to have their little smog machines, They're gonna try and do the smog thing. Super Earth's just gonna blow it the fuck up. The smog's gonna go away. Sun's gonna come down, and there's literally nothing they can do from that point. They're just gonna all burn in the sun. They're gonna have to get in their ships and flee, and then Super Earth is gonna chase them into space, blowing them to shit and killing them out in space. Super, super easy. Honestly, this one probably should have been first. When I started making this list, I put the Klyntar first because of just how bad their flame weakness is. Like, it's super, super bad. And I thought that while the Imperium also had a really bad weakness, the smog machines does mean they have a defense for it. But that doesn't really matter. I mean, they're still weaker in literally every single way that you can be weaker when compared to the Klyntar, and that smog machine's not gonna do anything if the Helldivers can immediately destroy it the moment it shows up. So yeah, swap these out. Imperium should go first, and then the Klyntar should go after them. The Imperium is by far the shittiest group on this list, and they also don't have the numbers. Klyntar has way more numbers to fight against Super Earth than the Imperium does. The only forces we see in the Imperium are enough to invade one planet. The Klyntar is spread across the entire universe, and they have enough people to still form a whole planet with just their own bodies, which again is an insane number of people. So yeah, no, Imperium sucks. Klyntar's better. They both still fucking die though. Next up, we have the Viltrumites from the Invincible universe. And since this is the first time me ever talking about any Viltrumites on this channel, I suppose I have to go over this faction in long, in-depth, excruciating detail, right? So if you do know anything about the Viltrumites, you might be watching this video and thinking that it's a little weird that they're only at 3 and not the last one on this list. Because, I mean, it's a whole army of Supermen. Obviously, they should just show up and fuck up the whole planet, right? Like, it should be no problem. And I will grant you that if all 50, which by the way, when I say army, there's only 50 Viltrumites. If all 50 were to show up at Super Earth unannounced, just appeared one day and was like, we're gonna fucking destroy your planet, and then they just started fucking it all up, killing everybody, doing all that kind of stuff, the likelihood of Super Earth overcoming and stopping them from taking over that single planet is very, very, very unlikely. Having said that, even if that happened, that doesn't mean you just defeated Super Earth, because you'd have to defeat the entire Empire, and the actual planet of Super Earth is just one planet in countless planets that they have. But also, that's not how the Viltrumite conquers worlds. Never at any point do they send all 50 of their people to one planet. They're 50 dudes that have to run and control the entire universe. And when it comes to them dominating planets, they are so fucking slow. My God, are they slow. They'll send 1, maybe 2 dudes to a planet to prepare the planet for their arrival, and that person will spend several decades understanding the planet, figuring out how the planet works, weakening the planet's defenses, preparing them for the arrival of other Viltrumites to actually come and take over. We see Nolan do this to Earth, and he was on Earth for over 20 fucking years. That is way too long to invade one planet. It's absolutely insane. When you compare that to Super Earth, they take over whole planets in like a day or 2. They're super quick with it. What the fuck are the Viltrumites taking so long if they're so goddamn powerful? Also, the fact that the Viltrumites are sent there for the sole purpose of weakening the planet before the arrival of the Viltrumites means that the Viltrumites are aware that it's possible that they have weapons on those planets that can actually take them out and resist them in some way. The reason why they do this is because they're terrified they only have 50 people and they don't want to run into a planet that can actually fight against them. Now, maybe I would say that the Viltrumites stand a bit of a chance if the one person they sent to Earth was like undercover and pretending to be a Super Earth citizen all that time and not just openly revealing themselves as a Viltrumite, this super-powered god-level being. But they don't. They just outwardly say, we're Viltrumites here to defend the planet and protect you guys and all this kind of, we're like, we're cool. Which means that Super Earth is going to be immediately aware that there are these Superman-like beings out there that they need to start preparing for. And then the Viltrumite that's sent there, that's hiding his true purpose and having to prepare the planet, that's 20 years for Super Earth to prepare for a Viltrumite invasion, right? Super Earth should already have weapons that are capable of damaging the Viltrumites. We know from the comics that the absolute strongest Viltrumite Thrag could not survive being on the surface of the sun. We have things in our real world today on Earth where scientists can create heats far greater than that of the sun. Nuclear explosions create more heat than the sun. We have lasers that create more heat than the sun. We can actually make furnaces that create more heat than the sun. So we should be able to damage Viltrumites in our real world. I actually call bullshit on that scene in Invincible where the scientists say that they started doing all these tests on Invincible cells and nothing they did could affect it. If the dude can be burnt from the sun, then they should have been able to create heats in labs that would have burnt and fucked up those Viltrumite cells. Like, that just seems like a plot hole to me. Either that, or Earth in the Invincible universe is significantly less technologically advanced than we are, which just seems wrong, given that they have, like, the Reanimen and shit. It just seems very selective of which technology they have that's super advanced and which ones are not quite so high on. And we know that Super Earth can create heats that are hotter than the sun. They literally have nuke-launching pistols. The center of nuclear explosions are significantly hotter than that of the sun. Hell bombs should be significantly hotter than that of the sun, meaning they should absolutely affect all Viltrumites, including Thrag, the strongest of all Viltrumites. Having said that, it is true that different size nukes can have different levels of heat. So it's definitely possible that the pistol nuke they have or the hell bomb do not have the same levels of heat of a massive nuke that does have heat that's hotter than the sun that would damage all the Viltrumites. That's definitely possible. Maybe the hell bomb wouldn't actually affect them because it doesn't have the proper heat levels. Okay, I would still argue that Super Earth does have large nukes that would be superior to nukes that we use on our planet, that would be even hotter than the 100 million degrees that our nukes are capable of doing, and they have no issues of using them against the Viltrumites. But fine, we'll skip that for a second. Even if you were to say all that, Super Earth still has weapons that can harm them. Viltrumites are shown being affected by electricity, very large amounts of electricity, but still harmed by electricity. Super Earth, again, has electricity. They have a quasar cannon, which fires quasars. A quasar is a star. If Thrag is shown burning alive on a star, then a quasar cannon that fires a star should be able to harm him. I've heard people argue against this, saying that a quasar cannon doesn't actually fire quasars, and that I have to prove that a quasar cannon fires a quasar, which just seems weird to me. Like, I think that my evidence of it being called a quasar cannon is pretty good evidence that the thing it's firing is a quasar. Like, I wouldn't look at you and expect you to have to prove that a plasma rifle is firing plasma. It just seems kind of self-explanatory, right? Like, a flamethrower throws flames. A rocket launcher launches rockets, right? Like, am I crazy here? A portal gun makes portals, an arc thrower throws arcs of electricity. This is kind of just the naming scheme of guns and how they work. So if I introduced you to a quasar cannon, what do you think it fires? I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to let your good sense and knowledge of the world and how it works answer that question for you, because I have faith in you as a person. But let's say that all of that stuff isn't enough, right? The electricity they have doesn't have enough amperage to actually damage them. None of their lasers or nuclear warheads create enough heat to actually do anything, which they should, but let's just pretend they don't for a second. The quasar cannon, for some weird fucking reason, doesn't fire quasars. It's just like little energy balls of generic energy type, whatever. Let's just say for a second all that's the case. Okay, Super Earth will still have over 20 years to prepare for an actual invasion to happen. It's the timetable that's going to be the biggest issue for the Viltrumites. The Viltrumites don't just go in and invade shit. If they did, they would be more successful in this particular scenario. But as it stands, no. Especially not against someone like Super Earth that is so good at adapting their technology to fight against things that they've never fought against before. Super Earth created a black hole the size of a planet to destroy another planet. I would actually argue that would be enough to also kill most of the Viltrumites, given that we've never seen a Viltrumite try to escape a black hole or try to get away from a black hole that's this fucking big. The black hole that Omni-Man had to fly away from was nowhere near the size of a fucking planet. It was way smaller. None of them have ever had to deal with this level of suction before from a black hole. But after Super Earth created that black hole, the Illuminates came in, and then using their weird pseudo-science, they decided to send that black hole flying across the galaxy, just chucked it at Super Earth. Super Earth had never seen anything like this before, someone piloting a black hole and chucking it at you. And they, within like a week and a half, were able to create a whole whole new technology that was a missile that when fired near the black hole would siphon off the dark energy from said black hole and not only slow it down, but shrink it and hopefully get rid of it entirely. And it fucking worked. It did siphon the energy. This was brand new technology. It took them a week and a half to come up with it. You're telling me that in 20 years, Super Earth isn't going to be able to create technology to deal with these motherfuckers when they already have things on their planet that can arguably deal with them now? You're telling me in 20 years, Super Earth is not going to figure out about the sound weakness that Viltrumites have? You're telling me they're not going to build that into all of their sound systems across the board? All of Super Earth is literally covered in propaganda speakers. They can literally just send a signal through all those speakers that is a frequency that would immediately neutralize all Viltrumites on the planet. It would be very, very casual. Honestly, I don't even think that if the Viltrumites all came together to invade immediately, that they would necessarily win. I mean, we know that Super Earth has weapons on their ships that are capable of blowing up moons. They use moons as fucking target practice. Like, normally. A gun with that much yield would kill all but the absolute top tier Viltrumites. Like, out of the 50 Viltrumites, fucking 45 of them would be able to be killed by a weapon like that. And all of the Super Earth warships have weapons that are that powerful. We have no idea how many warships they have, but they have enough that they've been able to have complete space supremacy against 3 different sci-fi armies that have so many numbers on their side that we've killed almost 500 billion in the last year, and we're not slowing down anytime soon. You're talking about most likely trillions, if not quadrillions of fucking people, with a fleet capable of transporting these people against 50 Viltrumites. Do I think the Viltrumites can do some damage? Yes. Absolutely. Like I said, if all 50 of them invaded one planet on Super Earth, they would fuck it up. They would destroy it. They might lose very few, if any, people. It would be very one-sided. But you're not facing one planet. You're facing an entire galaxy populated with these motherfuckers. They vastly outnumber the Viltrumites. They have weapons that can absolutely damage them. And honestly, it's just going to be a war of attrition with the Viltrumites not being able to kill people faster than they can be killed. It's almost like they are specifically designed in their own universe to lose, which, by the way, they were. Why do you think Robert Kirkman even wrote into the Viltrumite faction that there's only 50 left? The only reason why that even exists in the story is so that they have a possibility of losing. Is so that they can lose. And they will. And honestly, it's not going to take that much time. Last up, but certainly not least, we have the Protomolecule from the Expanse universe. And I'm not going to lie, this one kind of has me a little bit excited because this is probably the most interesting thing that I've ever put in one of these sort of sci-fi challenges. The Protomolecule is fascinating, but there's not a whole lot I can tell you about it. Like, we don't know where it's from or really too much about what its purpose. I mean, we basically know. Okay, let me just go over it. Basically, in the Expanse universe, the Protomolecule was sent to our solar system by somebody, and the basic goal of the Protomolecule is to essentially create a bridge from our solar system to a bunch of other different solar systems. Throughout the story, the Protomolecule is doing all kinds of very weird things, and the show doesn't really explain why. And as the seasons go on, you learn a little bit more, and eventually it's revealed that basically it's building a big-ass portal to a bunch of other portals that it also built all across the universe. So it's actually connecting all of these different solar systems to each other. So anyone who travels through one doorway can come out in any one of these thousands upon thousands of other doorways that's built in other places. We don't know why it's doing this or what the purpose is. Is it for some massive alien invasion some point in the future? Maybe. I don't know. But the thing that makes the Protomolecule so dangerous, and the reason why I think the Helldivers are going to have such a hard time with it, is because it actually doesn't care about the Helldivers' existence at all. A good description that's given of the Protomolecule in the show is that it's kind of like a bunch of construction workers building a road. You don't care what kind of ants or bugs or life is living where that road's gonna go. You're just gonna build the road on top of it, killing anything that's on it. That is essentially what the Protomolecule is doing. And the crazy shit we see the Protomolecule doing makes it really interesting to talk about in basically any universe. Like, just to give you a basic gist of what this thing even is, the people in the series know almost nothing about it. They don't even know if it's biological or technological. All they know is that it was probably made by something. What they do know is that the Protomolecule does have some form of intelligence and is actually capable of copying and even assimilating the intelligence of other life forms into itself to make itself smarter. And considering that it's already built a lot of these other roads in other solar systems and already assimilated the intelligence of most of those life forms, It is very, very intelligent. And with that intelligence, it's capable of controlling physics and reality in ways that science can't really explain. Like, for instance, at one point, it sets a solar system-wide speed limit, and anything that goes over that speed limit immediately has their speed taken from them. That's really the best I can describe it. Basically, like, it makes a speed limit. Let's say the speed limit's, I don't know, 30 miles an hour. Anything that goes faster than 30 miles an hour immediately stops moving. Like, there's no slowdown. It just immediately stops, and it is not capable of moving anymore. Even if you try to force it in a direction, even though there's nothing actually stopping it, it just won't move at all. It's been shown being able to completely remove energy from things, like just completely depowering ships, even though there's no scientific explanation to why these ships no longer have power. It was able to move a massive asteroid flying at insane speeds towards a planet, despite the fact that, again, science couldn't explain what was moving the asteroid. It was explained that it wasn't just like telekinesis. The asteroid had the same energy readings as a ship would flying through space. The Protomolecule just gave that thing to an asteroid that doesn't have a motor or anything and just had it start behaving like a ship. Wild. It's been capable of mind controlling people, giving people weird visions. It once brought a pile of scrap metal to life, and the scrap metal had memories and a personality of a dude who died years prior. This scrap metal was able to move and speak despite the fact that it didn't have vocal cords and just behave like a person, but it was just a pile of scrap metal. At one point, a guy fired a gun in the vicinity of the Protomolecule, and the Protomolecule didn't like that. So not only did it freeze the bullet in midair, but also the guy who shot the gun had his skin removed from his muscle and his muscle removed from his bone. He did not survive this, by the way. And honestly, the Protomolecule is just shown as this thing that can kind of do whatever it wants. If it had the desire to, it could really rule over any planet or solar system it wanted to, like a god, and it would be very, very difficult to argue that it isn't one. If the Protomolecule went to war with Super Earth, I have no doubt in my mind it would win. The problem with the Protomolecule is it doesn't want to go to war with Super Earth. It doesn't want to go to war with anyone. Warring is not its purpose. Its purpose is to build these portals and connect these different places together, and it only really fucks people's shit up when it feels like they're trying to stop it from doing that. Like, the reason why it made the speed limit across the solar system is because it had a bunch of ships going around it and trying to approach it, and it was like, I don't like this, I don't know what you guys are trying to do, just fucking stop. And then they just all stopped and they couldn't move, and that was that. And then once the people convinced the Protomolecule that they weren't trying to harm it, he lifted the speed limit rule and they were able to move again like there was no big deal. You can't really call him a he or a her, but the Protomolecule is actually a relatively reasonable piece of technology or entity or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Like, as long as you leave it alone, it'll leave you alone. Just let it do what it needs to do. Now, will Super Earth let it do what it needs to do without trying to get involved with all of its shit? Probably not. No. Well, actually, that's kind of questionable, because if Super Earth finds out what the Protomolecule wants to do, that it wants to connect all of these other places, they may actually just let them do it, because once those portals are made, Super Earth would be able to utilize those portals. As of right now, Super Earth is bound by the current galaxy that they're in. If any of these portals lead to a place outside of the galaxy into other galaxies or even other universes, we actually don't know from the show how far these planets are. That would allow them to expand to other locations, and they would actually work with the Protomolecule to do so. The issue there is the Protomolecule doesn't really just come out and explain to people what it's doing or why it's doing it. Most of the Expanse, everyone's just running around like chicken with their head cut off, having no idea what the Protomolecule's doing or why it's fucking all this shit up. It's not until really late in the show where they actually see like what its purpose was. And I don't think that the Super Earth is just gonna chill back and let it do whatever it wants to do, not being aware of what that purpose actually is. But also, since the Protomolecule is not really a person, or at least doesn't seem like it's a race, it seems like it's a technology, they actually might try to utilize it for their own benefit and see if they can take control of the technology. And as far as how well that's gonna go, In the Expanse, there are several characters who try to do that, and it doesn't go well for any of them. It's very, very difficult to control the Protomolecule. However, it's not like completely impossible. There were scientists in the Expanse who were able to study and start to in some way understand the Protomolecule better than other people, and Super Earth is way more advanced than the Expanse universe. Like, the Expanse universe is very, very, very low technology sci-fi. Like, in the Expanse, they don't have light speed travel. All of their technology is shown to be very realistic. If you go above certain speeds, the actual G-force will kill everyone on board. So even if they were capable of traveling light speed, they straight up couldn't because it would fucking kill them. They don't have a way to get gravity onto their ships. They do have this thing called spin gravity, which is based on a real thing where basically if your entire ship spins, you can sort of make a G-force fake kind of gravity. They do have ships that do that, but for the most part, if you're on a ship and you're walking around and shit, you have to have some kind of special boots that keep you on the ground because there's no gravity in space and none of their ships have artificial gravity. Everything in the Expanse is shown to be very, very realistic. In Helldivers, that's not really the case. They have way more advanced technology and they're a lot better at adapting that technology. So I think they would probably get a lot farther with studying the Protomolecule than the people in the Expanse show did. So I would probably say that that's the best case scenario. If Super Earth can stop their warlike nature for 5 seconds and not try to wipe out the Protomolecule and try to understand it and like figure out what it is, and maybe if they can utilize it for their own benefit and work with it, then they might be good. The whole reason why the Protomolecule fucks up the people in the Expanse so much is because you have all these warring factions that hate each other and are trying to use the Protomolecule for their own benefit against other people, and they're doing very, very stupid things with the technology that's causing all sorts of problems. But you know, now as I'm describing it, Super Earth's basically the exact same way. It's a bunch of different factions that all hate each other, trying to kill each other. It's going to use the Protomolecule for the exact same thing. Yeah, I think you're probably going to see just a more extreme version of exactly what happened in the Expanse. I do think eventually the portals will get made, and when the portals do get made, that's going to cause all sorts of problems, because now you're going to have the automatons and the Terminids and Super Earth and the Illuminates all fighting over control of these portals that are now bringing them to these new world type locations where the other factions don't exist, and now you're going to have like a four-way fight over the portals as well. It's really just going to be the exact same plot of the Expanse for the most part, actually. Maybe this wasn't as interesting as I thought it was going to be, but I will say this. Super Earth is not in any way going to be able to overcome the Protomolecule. I don't even think it's possible. Like, Super Earth travels by basically folding space, and then, you know, the whole thing where you fold a sheet of paper and stick a pencil through it, and yeah, you know, the explanation you've seen in like 1,000 different things. Yeah, okay. That's what Super Earth does. That's how they travel. I don't see a reason why, if the Protomolecule started to see Super Earth as a threat, it couldn't just be like, yeah, you can no longer do that. Just like make a rule, like you can no longer travel through those folded space portals like you were before. Basically completely removing space travel as a concept in the Helldivers universe, and now none of the characters would be able to travel anymore. So like you just have a bunch of disconnected planets not being able, like they wanted to shut off communications between planets. The Protomolecule can do that. Like it can literally just set rules that the whole universe just has to follow. Now I will give it a little bit of credit. The Protomolecule is only shown making these rules in like solar systems. It's never shown doing it across an entire galaxy. So it's possible that it just doesn't have that range. Like it can only, like if it did it where Super Earth is, people would lose the ability to leave and come to Super Earth, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all of the Helldivers and all the other military vessels wouldn't be able to travel. They just wouldn't be able to go to Super Earth. So there might be something there where the scale of the Helldivers universe is much larger than the Expanse, which is just our solar system. So that might change the trajectory of the story because it won't have as much control over the entirety of the Super Earth Empire as it did to literally everyone in the Expanse. So in summary, how this is going to go really depends on how Super Earth views the Protomolecule. If it views it as an invading alien force, which is possible that it does, because especially when it possesses people, like takes over people's bodies, it just straight up looks like an alien. So if it views it that way, they're fucked, because then they're going to try and go to war with it, and they're not going to be able to overtake the protomolecule. However, if they view it as an advanced technology that they can utilize to better their own civilization and their weapons and just military mostly, and don't try to go to war with it, but more so try and collect it and study it and utilize it for their own benefit, that might actually go really well for them. They may actually be able to just straight up end the entire war. They would no longer need the Terminids because the protomolecule can literally create energy out of nothingness. They would have no reason to continue this ongoing war with these three factions. They could just win the war and then just keep spreading. And now, since they control the protomolecule, they can spread into literally countless other galaxies without any real threat to them at all, because now they have like this godlike weapon that allows them to control the rules of physics and reality. But this is only possible if they gain an understanding of this technology to a degree that we never saw anyone in the Expanse actually come to. And it's just as likely that the protomolecule will not want them to get this type of understanding over it and will not want them to utilize it for their own purposes, and then just decides to start fucking with them because they're doing some shit they're not supposed to. And then the next question will become whether or not Super Earth can stand down and not go to war with a force that is clearly far superior to itself, because it's literally never run into anything like that. Like, we don't know how it would react if it came to basically a godlike being. Are they still so arrogant they would want to fight that thing, or would they just be like, you know what, let's wait, let's hold off, let's not drive our entire species to extinction trying to fight this thing that we clearly stand no chance against? There's a couple of really cool ways this can go. If anyone's ever seen The Expanse or read the books, let me know what you guys think would happen, because this is a cool one. The protomolecule just conceptually is very cool. But that's going to be all for me. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember, to join the membership, you get videos early. And always remember, y'all stay safe out there, you hear?